Welcome, everyone, to the Women Are Worthy Network. This is where we have a wonderful discussions where people talk about, their trials, tribulations, and what they've gone through. Tonight, we have a phenomenal, when I tell you, they're one of the original comeback stories.
Yeah.
Listen to me. When I say we women rock, we rock.
Yeah.
I'm just so proud of her. So we have the honor of having a conversation with Kathy Tuccaro. So Kathy has overcome so many obstacles and trauma. This is the reason why I want Kathy on this platform. Especially now we're going through COVID. So many people have possibly lost their homes, lost their jobs, lost their families, and you feel hopeless. You feel like, you may think about committing suicide. Let's put that out there. You may think that you can't do anything, but you know what? You can. And through this woman, she's going to share her incredible story with us. We want to inspire hope. That's why I wanted her on here, to inspire hope. We're no better than the other person. We're here to support and love each other. So without further ado, y'all, oh, Lord, thank you.
Oh my gosh.
All the way from Canada. Yes, y'all, I say Canada.
Yeah.
We have Kathy. Kathy, how are you, honey?
Hi, thank you so much for having me as a guest. It's a real honor to be here, and I love the title of your show, just everything that you're all about, I'm about. So I think this is a good connection. So yeah, let's get right into it.
Let's get into it.
Oh.
Who is Kathy? And tell us your story. This is a platform this is your show. I'm just the facilitator. Tell us what happened, Kathy.
It's such there's so much content in there that it's where do you start? How do you even come across with what the message is? So you know what, I'll just get right into it. It's a lot of people have their pain and trauma, and we all have a story. I've met a lot of women that their stories are 100% worse than mine, but it's not a matter of who is worse, who's better. It's not, because it's what you do with that story, because it's all different for every person. In my case, I was put in a foster home from 6 months old till I was 4, and I was molested. My very first memory is a hand going like this and whispering in my ear to not scream and not cry, to be quiet. So my very first emotion was fear. And I have spent my entire life up until about 10 years ago with that invisible hand on my mouth. It's like I had no voice. I couldn't speak. I couldn't say anything. I was so full of trauma. My mom, she remarried when I was 4, and thought he was, for the community, he was the perfect guy, the all genius. Everyone loved him. But as soon as you closed the house door, he became a monster. The sexual abuse involved, a lot of family violence. Not so much the sexual abuse with me, it was more my sister. I had to take showers with him and bath him and do things like that. No penetration or anything to that extent. But I mean, abuse is abuse in whatever form it takes, right? You're still violated. His father, his brother, and my stepfather, all three molested my older sister, and she's been a mess her entire life up just until like 4 years ago. Like, it's just horrible. So I grew up in fear. Not only did I have the mouth covering the hand covering my mouth, but I had fear that was overwhelming inside. So what I did with that, when I was 14, I was raped by my first boyfriend. I was molested again. I was sent back to that initial foster family, and I was molested again there. The police were involved in this one. It was a pretty violent event. I never said anything to my family. I ended up at going to escape my household, because there was alcoholism and drugs and just very dysfunctional. So I left when I was 18. I went to Montreal to become a model, and it was all right, but I didn't have the right personality. I had no say, right? So when I was 19, I went to Miami to be a model down there, and one of the photographers slipped a roofie in my drink, and I was drinking Diet 7-Up. 1 minute, like I felt it wasn't right, I should go home. And he says, "Oh no, just, have one more and I'll take you home." You know, that what is it? The wolf with the slick smile, you know? And I woke up and he was raping me and telling me it was my fault, that I had asked for it, that I wanted it. And I know well that's so not true. So I never told anybody that. And when I was 19, I gave up the modeling. I went to New York. I did all that, but I was too traumatized. And when I was 19, I was gang raped, leaving downtown Montreal, the bar, not the bar. I worked in a hotel on the top. They had a pool and a restaurant sort of thing. And at 3:00 in the morning, I went to have lunch with all my coworkers. And then I took a cab home. All I had to do was leave the cab door and cross the street to my apartment. But it was in a dark area of Montreal, like close to downtown. I couldn't find my keys, and I just kind of looked over and I saw 4 guys coming, but I was too preoccupied by finding my keys. Next thing you know, I got hit on the head and drug around the corner. And thankfully, I ended up passing out before, so I don't have a whole lot of recall. I mean, there's bits and pieces. So when I woke up, there was a man on top of me raping me, and he wouldn't get off until, so even though I tried fighting him. But when he finished, I was able to roll out and try and find my clothes, which were all torn from before. My purse was gone. I had no money, no keys, my rent money, like everything was gone. And I asked him, I said, well, where am I? And he said, well, he was my neighbor. He says, you're right next door. So my neighbor had found me in the alley. And so him and his roommate both raped me. And instead of calling the police like I should have, I was so filled with disgust and shame, and just, I can't even put into words how I felt. I went and I crossed the street and called my landlord to come open the doors. And when I told him what happened, he ended up raping me. Like he wanted to teach me a lesson, is his exact words. And he'd said, if you fall off a horse, what do? You get back up on. And he said, most women that have been raped are become frigid, and I can't let that happen to you. So I'm doing you a favor. He says, you'll thank me one day. And he was really rough, and it was just awful. I can't, So he left, and I drugged myself to the bathroom, and I stayed there for as long as there was hot water, trying to wash all the dirt. Did I call the police? No. To this day, I don't understand why. I think maybe partially, maybe it was my fault, but even though I know it's not, but back then at 19, so I stayed in my apartment for a couple of days, and I just couldn't seem to function, and until I realized, oh my God, it's a landlord. He's got the keys. He's going to come back. He's going to do it again. So that forced me out, and I needed a job. I needed to find a new place and new rent. And so as I'm standing on the bus stop, waiting for the bus, I see the neighbor who had raped me the night before. He's looking at me, and not to be crude, but he started rubbing himself and looking at me, smiling and sticking his tongue out. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like I got to get out of here. Like it threw me over the top. Like I lost my mind. And instead of going to look for a job, I had like $10 or $12 left to my name. I went to the liquor store and I went and bought a big bottle. Next thing you know, I'm on the biggest bridge in Montreal with a leg over, about to jump, and I'm cursing God. Like I was so angry because I'm such a good person. And I'm like, if you're such a loving God, how could you let all these things happen to me over a lifetime? Since I've been small, it's just been back to back to back. Like, how could you do this? Like, and why? Like I talk about it, and I still got goosebumps. It was quite the moment. So as I'm cursing him, literally, and I'm screaming, like, I hate you. And a man shows up. I could see him out of the corner of my eye, and he shows up. He was walking a bike, and he puts the bike down, and he never said a word. All he did was grab me by the shoulders, pull me off the ledge, and he just sat with me. He never said a word. It's because that's what I needed. He just kind of held me, and that was it. And he had this kind of love that was exuding from him, coming out. And I felt peace more than anything. And he walked me off the bridge about an hour later, or whatever time, I don't know. And miraculously, we're in the middle of Montreal in a place where there's no cabs. And there was a taxi right there at the foot of the bridge. And so he puts me in the cab, still hadn't said a word, told the taxi guy, the driver, to bring me to a hospital. So I did. I went there, and I didn't tell him that I was raped. I just said that I was suicidal, right? So I was there for a week, and then I left, and I thought that I could just deal with it without, actually dealing with it. So, but I couldn't, because I was having nightmares every night. So what do? I'm drinking, and I swallowed a whole bottle of pills. And I managed to call my mom, who was 6 hours away, and say, "Hey, Mom, I'm sorry," and blah, blah, blah. And I said I took some pills. She managed to get an ambulance to me, and I got my stomach pumped. And from that moment on, I said, okay, there's a lady that had come in, and her daughter was dying from whatever, some form of cancer. Her daughter was my age. And this woman came to me and was just washing my face very gently and lovingly, and asking me, why I would do such a thing when her own daughter is dying and she can't do anything. And here I am ready to take my life. And so it was a really important moment in my transition, because I understood something. And so what I did is I left Montreal, and I went as far as I could go. You do the geographical change, right? I went across Canada and I went in Alberta, Jasper. I had $150 in my pocket. I took a one-way train ticket. I had one suitcase. I'm starting over, right? And I did, but I hadn't done any treatment or a mental health issue, therapy. So I was drinking, and I ended up slitting my wrist this time, like maybe a month later or a couple months later. And it was then when a pastor had come to see me, and I started talking to him about, what was going on. And he actually helped me. And I went back to school instead, and I became a nurse. I met my ex-husband at the time. I had a daughter, and everything was great. I mean, did I get the therapy, the treatment? No, I didn't. What I did is I swallowed everything, pretended that I was fine. I'm really good at putting on a smile, man. Like, hey, how's it going? Right? And with this new nursing career, it gave me the motivation to better myself. I have this wonderful future. There's great, endless possibilities, these opportunities. I'm doing good. I'm a great nurse. And I loved what I did, because it was easier for me to take care of other people's problems. Right. And it's a classic nurse syndrome. You work overtime just to not go home, not to deal with your own crap. So I did that. I was working 2 jobs, and just trying to, what I was doing is that I was downplaying my pain. I'm looking at someone who's riddled with cancer, who burn victims. I was on the burn unit for a while, or all these different issues, medical issues. And I'm thinking, what happened to me was a long time ago. It doesn't matter. You give yourself excuses. You lie to yourself that it's okay, that it's not that bad. It happened in the past, stays in the past. Let's just keep it away. So what I did is I locked it down in that vault, and I just kind of threw away the key. But the problem with doing that is, when you have, and I'm going to say this in kind of nursing terms, when you have a wound, say I cut my arm, and it's bleeding, and I don't take care of it, what happens? It gets infected. If you don't take care of the infection, I mean, you can get gangrene, you can get septic, it goes through your blood system, you can die from it. So what is the difference from an external wound and an internal wound? It's the same. And just the only thing that's different is how you die, right?